a bit late, I apologize. So it gives time for people to get on anyway. But I'm here to talk to you today with my crazy, crazy hair about the Medicated Oils Instructional course. And so I wish I had my mom's Pomeranian. I could be the poof with him. But anyway, the Medicated Oils Instructional course. It's an awesome foundation course, and it's a course that you can take and know after taking it. You've gone through start to finish, from choosing your cannabis to medicating your oil. You learn all about, let's go through this again, shall we? I just got a little jittery to hurry up and get here because it's past 11 o'clock now. It's taking care of a small dog with some dental issues. So take a breath. The Medicated Oils Instructional course. That's what we're here to talk about. The course is really awesome because it takes you from choosing your cannabis, decarboxylation, choosing your oil, medicating your oil stovetop, medicating it in the magic butter machine, storing your oil. We go through why to dose low. And having all those things from start to finish is really a comprehensive way to start your medicinal cannabis education. I'm just going to give a couple more seconds. But the reason that it's so important for your cannabis education is because while you can go out and look up different things, like look up videos on medicating oil or on decarboxylation, why do you want to medicate a certain way, or why would you want to decarb, or why don't you want to decarb? Some people wouldn't want to, and there's a reason for that. We covered that in the course. But one of the main things is really to take away from this is that it's not just about medicating your oil. This really is a course that is all about learning what to do when you're medicating your oil so that it's the most effective for you personally. We're going to get to some questions, but really, and the whole point of these courses, just as a side note while I'm pulling up the questions, is to make your medicating with cannabis work for you. Because if it doesn't work for you, then you're not going to stick with it. It's not going to be effective, obviously, if you don't stick with it. So we want to make sure that it works for you. So we're setting general guidelines for you to follow. You don't have to do everything the same way that I do things, but it gives you a starting point. Okay, so let's just go over. We went over the goal of the course, but just to make sure I didn't skip anything, the goal of the course really is to provide you with that said foundation and all that jazz. And one of the things that I wanted to also add, that's why I wanted to review this really quickly, is because in the course, when we talk about medicating with the magical butter machine, again, you don't have to do everything the way that I do them. You can medicate with different herbal infusers. So I have a whole list of herbal infusers with their links so that you can go and check them out, investigate them, and see if that's something that you would rather utilize. And so getting back to the questions, one of the first questions that I received is, why do you suggest to take notes? Why I suggest for people to take notes is because when you're actually taking that pen to paper, you're creating, depending, and this again, it depends on the way you learned. So if taking notes, if that is not a technique that helps you retain information, then don't worry about it. But if it does, then it might be helpful to, while you hear something of interest, just make a quick note, a scribble on a piece of paper, so that you don't forget it. And understand that you will have access to download all the slides, and so you can refer back to them as often as needed, even if you don't have Wi-Fi connection. So it's not that you won't have the information in the future, I'm just trying to suggest a way to make sure that you can perhaps retain that information easier than having to come back and rewatch it over and over again. But again, if that's not something that helps you hold on to information, then don't do it. Just do what works for you. I'm going to be saying that all the time because throughout my cannabis journey, I was told the way things work. Like, this is the way you do something. And if I were to go in a different direction, I was told that was wrong and that it wouldn't work. And what I found out is that when I went in different directions, I found things that worked better for me, even though people said they wouldn't. And all along my pharmaceutical journey, I was told that I was crazy, basically, when certain medications wouldn't work as they were supposed to for me. So pharmaceuticals were simply ineffective for my body. It wasn't that I was making things up. I wasn't trying to be difficult for my doctors, but I was a bit confounding. So their solution to my not responding to pharmaceuticals was to send me to a psychiatrist. So I come into medicinal cannabis, and I was really fortunate with the people I met at the very beginning because they really urged me to learn and to not stick with one methodology, to develop what works for me, and having that strong background. And you know who you are. So thank you very much. I always say it, but I can never thank enough. But having that strong backbone helped me for when people in the cannabis industry will look at me and say, well, that's not how you do things. You do it this way. This is just how you do it. It helped me to say, no, let me try this. So I did, and then things would work better. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I should try lots of different things. And so I did. And I found that some things worked better for me, some things didn't. And sometimes, some of the things people would say is right. So, but find what works for you. My point is just don't feel uncomfortable and that you have to do what everybody else says. Because the science is really new. For instance, doctors, researchers in the forefront of medicinal cannabis are learning, they've been learning for the past few years, but it's not made nationwide news, of course, because it's federally illegal. But they're learning that low-dose cannabis, medicating with low-dose cannabis, is actually more effective than medicating with high doses of cannabis. So, and the recreational way that we've been doing it is to have everything really high dose because that's the way people get high and that's the way you make money, because if you get people high, then you sell your product when you're coming off of the black market. So, and I respect the black market. I appreciate that they kept this plant alive, don't get me wrong, but medicinal use of cannabis is really, really different. I mean, I smoked weed in college. It was fun to get high and relax and such. But to use it medicinally and really try to treat your symptoms such as spasms, if you have anxiety, if you have neuropathy, whether that be positive or negative neuropathy, it's just a whole list, or you're dealing with cancer, you want to use it in a way that will treat your symptoms. And so we also go over in the course to reference, I give a couple of websites, but how to research strains so that you can go into a dispensary and be more comfortable, more confident in asking bud tenders for something, to go over the selection. And I provide a list so you can make a little list of things that you want to try in the dispensary. But how do you get to that point? How do you pick those strains that you want to try? We talk about that in the course. And so I've gotten away from the questions a bit, so let me get back to that. I apologize for my tangents. But you get information out of them at least. That's the important thing. Okay, so, oh, that's funny. So followed by that is there's a lot of information provided. Why? and what should I start with? So why I provided a lot of information is because going along this medicinal cannabis journey, searching for information, it was really hard to find specifically information regarding medicinal cannabis. Finding information regarding recreational cannabis and how to get high, that was really easy to find. But finding how to do things in a way that treats my symptoms as effectively as possible. And at the time, I didn't really care whether I got high or not. But it turns out the way that best treats my symptoms is in a fashion that won't get you loaded. So that's handy for people to learn. But getting back to why I give out so much information. So there's just basic knowledge that you need going forward to deal with medicinal cannabis. Recreational is easy because you just want to get high. It's an easier place to go. Medicinal cannabis is a bit trickier because you are having specific things that you're trying to treat. So that's why we go over how to choose a strain and getting into the specifics of decarboxylation, because you might not want to decarb, and there might be a different way you want to decarb for different purposes. Like if you're just wanting a stronger med, you decarb one way. If you want a med for sleep, you decarb another way. And if you want to really, excuse me, let me take a sip here. If you want a simple med, you don't want to decarb because you want to keep as much THCA, which is the acid precursor to THC and doesn't get you high. You want to keep as much of that as possible. And see, this is why I have packed so much information into this course, because it's those little nuggets of information that will help you just make your medicine more conducive to yourself. You'll be able to tweak it to where it's more effective for you. And next, it's just, and why is that? It's so I put so much information because I went through so much and had to search for the information to condense it into me. And it took a couple of years to really find a pretty simple treatment regimen, a pretty simple way to do things, but find the most effective way. So I'm trying to cut that, say a couple of years time, and I don't think most people have as much time as I did to work on this. I mean, I worked on it constantly, and if you have kids or a job or just a life, you might not have the time to experiment and do all this. So that's why I tried to get as much information into this course as possible. I wanted it to be a really strong foundation course. And where to start with the course? Really just start at the beginning. I mean, when you start at lesson 1, I give you an overview of how to walk through it, and I've designed the course in such a way that it takes you step by step. So, before you medicate your oil, you're going to want to get your cannabis. But how are you going to get your cannabis? Well, we're going to talk about that, and that's going to be the first thing that we're going to talk about. Hi, Mama. But that's going to be the very first thing that we're going to talk about. And then we talk about choosing your oil. And when we talk about choosing your oil, we're going to be going over health benefits and smoking points. And that will help you also determine, based on how you're going to be using your oil, whether it be cooking, baking, using it just sublingually, in a dropper under your tongue, or in the back next to your back tooth between your cheek. I'm getting on way too much information here. You'll learn all this in the course again. Or if you just want to drop it in a water bottle. It depends on your application. And so we talk about and touch on these things before we jump into medicating the oil. And then we get into medicating the oil. We go step by step through that process, both stovetop and through the magic butter machine. And then we'll talk about storing our oil and then dosing low so that you know how to use that oil that you just made. So everything, the design of this course was really well thought out in what are the steps that you're going to be taking so that you don't have to wonder, where should I go? Do I need to go to this lesson first or this lesson? No, skip that. Just go from the first lesson to the last lesson. Now, if you want to save yourself some time, you can just do the medicating oil, but you have lost a lot of information on why to pick certain strains that, why you should pick certain strains. I love you, Mom, you're awesome. But why you should pick those strains. So give yourself the time to take this course. Now, my last question kind of touches on this. Are there going to be basic tutorials? And yes, there will be basic tutorials because in response to people feeling overwhelmed by this course, I'm going to go ahead, even though this information is available online, I'm going to make just a really step-by-step so it's clear and concise and you don't, some of the videos are hard to follow online, but go ahead and look online and check it out if you would like. But I am going to be taking my just medicated oil stovetop and my medicating your oil in your magic butter machine and having that as a course. And so that will be just by itself. It will be inexpensive. And so if you're interested in this Medicated Oils Instructional and learning everything that's involved, you might want to sign up for it now if you haven't already, because I'll be raising the price. And so it's going to be going to $85 from $35. So until I get the smaller courses launched, it is going to be available to you for $35. But once I launch those smaller courses, the cost of the course is going to raise up to $85 from $35. So, and again, this course really is just an excellent foundation if you want to use it medicinally. So I really suggest you take the course and soak in the information and take it from start to finish. And again, you can download all the slides so you can refer back to them as often as needed. You don't have to memorize everything. I'll be here to support it, and if you have a question, feel free to reach out. One thing you will receive in the course or two things actually. There are 2 instructional cards, one for this medicating your oil in your stovetop and one for medicating your oil in the magical butter machine. And so it's just going to be a card that you can print out to have set on your counter if you don't want to have the video playing, you don't want to mess around with loading your computer. You can just have this card set up, and then you can see the steps to medicating your oil and just go step 1, step 2, yada, 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 and then you'll be through it. And so that gives you some backup to that as well. But the bulk of information is in the course. And again, we're going to be touching on choosing your cannabis, decarboxylation, and that one really is important. I want to emphasize, and I'm going to be having a course just on decarboxylation, but this is just a basic overview. So, do you want a stronger med? Decarb. Do you want to sleep? Decarb. And I'll go over each way to do, because there's a different way to do for just a stronger med, and then a different way to decarb for sleep meds. And then if you want gentle meds, skip decarbing, and we go over why. So I just want to emphasize this course, although it does seem overwhelming, it goes step by step through every lesson so that you can have a better understanding of how to medicate with cannabis medicinally. And I'm going to be getting the forum up on the website so that if you want to add your project photos, you can feel free. We'll have discussions. It's going to be a private closed forum for course enrollees. So, and we'll also have a general discussion forum for people who haven't taken courses. But the private forum is going to be really fun just to share things back and forth. I didn't want to do a Facebook group because I didn't want everybody to be hit with ads and just stuff like that. I wanted to have it be separate and just a really clean space to come and talk about your meds. And also just to kind of feel a bit more secure because, depending on your position, what you're doing in life, where you're employed, you may not want people to know that you're medicating. And I totally respect that. And so we are going to have this, be just for ourselves, just our cannabis users, because this isn't, if you want to come out green, as they're saying, that's awesome. I fully support that decision. But if you're in a place where you can't, don't feel like you're going to be exposed through going through these courses either. This is a private, safe place for you to learn about cannabis medicinally. And now I'll leave it up to the group. If anybody has any questions, please ask them. I'll give it a second. Then otherwise, seriously, I really do look crazy though. But I'll give it just a second. And then we'll get this Facebook Live ended. And then everybody can refer back to it if they would like to. But this has been really great. And I'll be going over one thing I actually forgot. So this is a great foundation course. I'm really excited about this course. I put a lot of time into it. But one exciting announcement that I have is I'm going to be speaking at the Reno Cannabis Convention on April 8th at 3, from 3 to 3:30. So if you're interested in seeing me speak, please come out. I would love to see you out in the crowd and give a hello. Love to see your smiling face. So anyway, check out the Reno Cannabis Convention. And for your question, timeline, I would like to have those courses released. They're going to be released by Monday. I would like to have them released this weekend if I can, but it's going to probably be Monday. I'm trying to think of the date, to be quite honest. I believe that's February 4th, but let me confirm. Okay. 5th. February 5th is the goal launch date for the tutorial courses. And so that will be the day. That's a great point, Mama. That's going to be February 5th is the cutoff date. That is when this course is going to go from $35 to $85. So, and then you'll have these tutorials that are much more simplified, that just focus on medicating oil stovetop and in a magical button machine. We'll take you step by step through that. And we'll go through that. Got what you're saying. And the Reno Cannabis Convention, when I'll be speaking, is the Reno Cannabis Convention, the whole thing is April 7th through 8th. I'll be speaking April 8th from 3 to 3:30. And so check out their website, Reno Expo. I need to look up their website because I don't know it by heart. It's so terrible, but the Reno Cannabis Convention, please look it up. I'll be having a whole thing on that, and I'll send out a mailer to everybody. But that was just announced, so I just wanted to share that excitingness with you. So thank you for dealing with my awkward Facebook Live, and I hope that this has brought you some useful information as to what the Medicated Oils Instructional entails. And I will check you all out later. Bye.